What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast, where we discuss everything in college football, NFL, college basketball, Illini sports, Chicago Bears, maybe a little bit of NBA, like we are probably going to do today. If any of that interests you, please hit the like button and the subscribe button on the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. It would help grow the channel so much, help out with the algorithm. I'd be really appreciative of that. And if you are listening into this in audio form, the podcast can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast. Please follow it, rate it, give a review, be a friend, tell a friend, share it out, do all that for me. If you could take the minute out of your day to do all that for me, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks to everybody that ever listens. The podcast is also brought to you by the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. If you go to bellyupsports.com, check out all the podcasts and other content on the channel. Thank you, Belly Up Sports, for having my podcast on your platform. Betting season is in full swing. If you head over to mybookie.ag to make your same game parlays and game bets, money lines, and it's your first time ever, on your very first deposit, if you use the code BELLYUPFANTASY, all one word, that's going to double your first deposit, and that is free money. That is money they are giving you to go bet. And if you listen to this podcast or other ones on the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network, go to bellyupsports.com. They will tell you which games to pick. You need to listen. There's a lot of smart guys out there doing this. Again, mybookie.ag, code BELLYUPFANTASY, all one word, on your very first deposit. It's going to double your first deposit. That is free money. Go do that for me. It helps out the podcast, but it's free money. Podcast is brought to you by Coach Stone Football and is back to the basics, books, and drills. If you go to CoachStoneFootball.com and check out all those books on football drills, practice planning, game planning, offense, defense, and much, much more, you will never have to look up another drill again. I promise you. Thank you, Coach Stone, for sponsoring the podcast. All right. We're going to dive into this episode, and I've done this one before. It's been a while. I reference it every now and then. There's times way back when me and Brad Miller and Coach West, we get into this a little bit. I tried my best to stay away from it on social media, but it's time. It's time to bring it back. Talking about the GOAT. And what I mean by the GOAT, and not in football or anything, we're talking about obviously the GOAT with LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant. There are a lot of people out there that think that LeBron is the GOAT. Now, I'm going to start by saying this. I will tell you why he's not, but at the same time, the older I've gotten, the more I think about it, the more I hear different sides of this. Let's just start off by saying this. It might be time for us to stop saying who's the GOAT, who's the best of all time, and talk about best during the era. So when Michael Jordan was playing, he was the best. When he was gone and we started to transfer over, this is where the Kobe Bryant and LeBron James talk gets a little heated, and especially when you're talking with me, who is, I know, rest in peace, Kobe, but a huge Kobe Bryant fan. And I do believe, and nobody's ever going to change my mind on this, that he was better than LeBron James. But where it gets hairy is that Kobe played at the very end of Michael Jordan's career. And then Kobe was playing somewhat at the beginning of LeBron's career. So LeBron and all the stuff that he has accomplished, and I do admit that he has accomplished a lot. He is a good player. He is a top 10 player. Sometimes, because he was a younger phenomena coming out of high school, that's where Kobe Bryant, that gets a little gray and a little hairy on that era. And to me, I would say Michael is the best in that era. Then when he was gone, it was Kobe's time. And then it had been when Kobe started to fade off a little bit because Father Time caught up to him and all the injuries, it became LeBron's time. And then it's transferring over, and this is, this is up for debate and discussion all the time. Is it Kevin Durant's time? Is it Steph Curry's time? And all that, which it does suck. But back in the day, superstars like a Michael Jordan did not allow another guy to say this is their league. That's why people kind of put Michael Jordan above there, and then the argument becomes all that. But I think we should start talking about eras. But for the sake of purposes, we're going to do this again. I did one a while back, way back at the beginning of the podcast. This podcast used to be called the Sideline Podcast with Coach Steve. So way back in those days when it was called that, I started this podcast, I believe, in February of 2020, right before COVID hit. So has it been since 2020? I think so. I think it was about 2020. So this podcast is almost 2 years old. So way back in the day, I did this, and I've discussed it since then. But for the sake, we're going to discuss this. For some of those reasons that I just named, when you talk about the GOAT, and we're talking about this, other guys can be brought into this conversation. Is Shaquille O'Neal brought into that conversation? I think Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant person over a period of 4 years. But when we talk about the GOAT, we got to look at everything. You have to look at era. You have to look at who they played. You got to look at how they've played. You got to look at championships. And then where LeBron fans come in is, well, look who was on their teams, look who they played. Before I dive into any stats, the biggest problem up until the last about 4 years, 5 years, has been LeBron fans. LeBron fans are the reason why I think people don't want to put him into that category of the GOAT. They don't want to talk about it because LeBron fans, way back when he came in, oh, he's the king. He's already the best, where he hasn't accomplished anything. And then it almost turns into like the political talk you hear today with all the hypocrisy of you say this way, but then when the same type of thing comes up, a different topic with the same criteria or the same type of storyline, these same people that say this about this, when you have the exact same thing come out, well, no, that doesn't mean the same thing. That's kind of what LeBron fans become. Now, not all of them. I've had good conversations with some LeBron fans that will sit there and say, I respect, Steve, what you've said about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. And I'll turn around and say, I respect what you say about LeBron James. Now, they'll walk away from it and say, but LeBron James is still the best. I'll walk away from it and say he's not, but we've walked away where it wasn't personal, wasn't meant anything. Then you got some people out there that make everything personal. They will type something on something you've said. Now, just because I've said about LeBron James, I don't know if they're like friends with LeBron James. I don't know if they clean his car. I don't know if they clean his shoes, but they will come to you and basically call me an idiot or say, I don't know what I'm talking about, instead of trying to have that conversation. Is it hard on social media? Absolutely it is. But you can tell, especially if you know the person in real life. Some people I don't know in real life, so it is hard to tell. And I hope that people that know me in real life understand if I say some things, it's not coming off as this harsh thing. But to the people that I know and they do it, I just got rid of them, and you people don't even, this is, way off topic. You just block those people or you defriend them or you get rid of them because you're just tired of, you know them in real life and they want to come at you, like the kids say, don't at me. They would come at me and basically call me an idiot. And, I don't know what I'm talking about. And, what I'm saying is wrong. And they think they're right because I coach all sports. I coach basketball, football, track. Well, they coach basketball. And when they coach basketball, they think they're a way better coach than you. When I try and say, well, I also coach basketball and I understand how the game works. And you're falling into this numbers thing instead of watching film, because that's the thing. No offense to basketball coaches. I love basketball. Basketball film and football film are completely different. But at the same time, you have to understand when you watch film, numbers don't tell the story. You have to watch film. You can look at something and say, hey, this kid is averaging 20 points a game in a high school ball. Let's see how he's doing it. Oh, he drives to the lane a ton. Okay, we're going to take that away and see if he can jump shoot. You take that away from him. Maybe he only scores 10 on you that night. Okay, well, the number didn't tell me the story. Okay, we watched this. Okay, this guy's getting 10 rebounds. Well, why? Well, because of his positioning, how he boxes out. Okay, well, then this is how we're going to do this. Maybe we double. There's ways to do it when you watch film. That's why the numbers matter, but also the film. If you just look at the numbers, man, he's scoring 20 points. Man, he's shooting well. He's doing layups. So all that stuff. But anyway, I'm getting way off. This is going to be all over the place. I'm going to try to keep it, boom, 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 everything, but it's going to be kind of all over the place. LeBron James is one of the best players we have ever seen, and he's a physical specimen that we may never see again. I admit that. Is he, considered, to some people's top Rushmore? Absolutely. Is he a guy that changes the game when he's on the floor? Absolutely. Could you put him in the top 5? Absolutely. To me, it's top 10, but some people in the top 5, absolutely. I do not argue with that whatsoever. Now, there's some things for the past couple of years I think he's doing to himself that's bringing it down, where people look at him differently. But also, what ruins LeBron James is the fans and some of these guys on Fox Sports and ESPN, aka the Shannon Sharps of the world, the Nick Wrights of the world. Where Nick Wright, I don't know how he has a job in sports whatsoever. He doesn't look like an athlete. I doubt he got past middle school ball. But I don't understand how he has a job in sports. But I think he literally goes on TV to make this money and just say, I'm going to talk everything about LeBron James because he's the best in the world. And not, he wanted Kobe to fail. And then all of a sudden, this is how dumb he is. I mean, RIP Kobe before I say this, but he goes, man, I went back and watched film and games of him. I didn't realize how good he was. That tells you how much of an idiot he is, because he doesn't watch the film, and he makes a lot of money to spill the crap and the rat poison on TV, and I don't understand it. So that kind of hurts LeBron James as well. Now we got to take a step back, Steve. So this is, again, me personally talking about the best of all time. We have to look at it. Some of this is going to be objective, where you can make arguments both ways, and some of this, to me, you cannot. With LeBron, Michael, and Kobe, you have to look at the eras. You have to look at who they were playing. You got to look at the rules. Okay. The NBA is different today. It's made to score points. It's made for flopping. It's not as physical. People want to say, oh, there's more talent around. And part of that is true. We've made so much advancement in weightlifting and nutrition. I mean, Michael and them were smoking cigars in the locker room. So that tells me, though, but if Michael was doing what he did then, doing that, and you put him into this, listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example. Arnold Schwarzenegger is considered the best bodybuilder of all time. And some people say, no, it's Ronnie Coleman. But Michael was doing the 60s, 70s. Ronnie Coleman was doing it in the 90s or the 2000s. The science from that era to that era was completely different. And people have straight up said, put Michael and those advances, and you watch like Pumping Iron, you watch other things with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He talks about, like, we didn't have some of these supplements. We didn't know some of these lifts. We didn't have some of these machines. We didn't have all of these scientific nutritionists. We didn't have all of this doctors and tissue stuff to really like open up the muscle and get the blood flowing and all that stuff and healing. Like you watch like Jay Cutler, even how much money he spent on like getting deep tissue stuff, getting the blood flowing to the muscle to heal. You put Arnold Schwarzenegger into that type of scientific thing, he's going to blow everybody out of the water. If you put Michael into that, Michael would blow everybody out of the water. Kobe was coming into that, and that's why he blew everybody out of the water and talent-wise. He made a couple things, and that's why, to me, sometimes it depends on the day. Sometimes I look at it and I go, okay, Kobe's the best. Sometimes I look at it and say, no, Michael's the best. I am comfortable to say Michael was the best and Kobe was right there with him. LeBron is top 5, right below the top 5, because and again, some of this is going to be me and some of it's not. So you have to look at everything. When you look at Michael Jordan, he played in the 80s and 90s. And this is where one person out there, a couple, said, well, I always talk about when you watch them, yeah, sometimes they don't look quite as athletic in this explosion because they don't have the weightlifting stuff. They don't have the talent. The stuff wasn't available. But they boxed out harder. You come through the lane, they could throw you to the ground. Now, it's still a foul, but there was no flagrant. There was no getting thrown out. It was just a part of it. There was getting elbowed in the face. Sometimes was not called. The three-point line wasn't a thing way back when until it started to come around. It was more focused on, jump shooting. And then Michael really started to drive the lane and bring that in. So Michael opened doors for things like LeBron's doing. You didn't have guys moving around. So you got to go look at the era, and the era that Michael played in, it was more fundamental. It was tougher because you could foul people like really hard, and sometimes it was not called, and sometimes it was. Fist fights weren't as bad as they are today of getting thrown out or anything like that. So you have to look at that type of thing because teams were getting held to lower points. Now, people today will say, well, it's because we're more talented. Oh, I don't think so. I highly doubt that. You just look at the numbers. The scoring was less because they could play defense. They could play defense. They ran an offense. They didn't just go one-on-one all the time. I mean, if you look at because the way average points were just way less. And for like Michael's career, and who knows if these stats are right, they're all over. I mean, played 1,072 games. He averaged 30.1 points a game. So in a league where it wasn't this high scoring as it is now, he was still averaging 30 points a game. And being a shooting guard, still getting 6.2 rebounds and 5.3 assists. That's another thing people don't realize. LeBron can do it all. I understand he can dribble and do all that, but he's bigger. He's going to be down low sometimes. Michael was a shooting guard. He's going to be up top. Now, sometimes in the triangle, he got at the bottom. That's another thing people have to realize, but they don't think of that, like, oh, no, you got to think about where they're playing and all this stuff. So Michael still did that. I mean, he averaged his field goal percentage. Now remember, Michael went to college, won a national title. So there's a couple of years not in the NBA. Did retire for about a year and a half. And then he retired again and then came back to Washington, and that kind of brought some of these numbers down. I mean, almost 50% field goal percentage. 3-pointers were not really practiced a lot. Now, he could still shoot them. He averaged about 32%, but he wasn't shooting them. He wasn't chucking them up. 83.5% free throw shooter. So, I mean, not bad numbers. So, I mean, some of these nicknames for Michael Jordan. Mike, Air Jordan, MJ is Airness, Money, Black Cat, Mr. June, GOAT, Superman, Captain Marvel, Black Jesus. These are great nicknames. Another thing with Michael in that era, in the playoffs, Michael averaged 33.4 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 5.7 assists in 179 games in the playoffs in his career. At the age of 40, Michael Jordan ended the season as the only Wizards player, and that's another thing we're getting into, is how many games they played, so we got to listen. At the age of 40, Jordan ended the season as the only Wizards player to play in all 82 games. He averaged 20 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 3.8 assists, and 1.5 steals, and he played 37 minutes per game at the age of 40 after being retired. And there's another one. How many times did Michael Jordan play a regular season? Michael Jordan has played all games of a season 9 times, the most ever in NBA history. Okay, that's another knock on LeBron. Does he finish all 82 games? Does he load manage? Okay. And then on top of it, 6-0 in the NBA Finals. And I don't want to hear the shit about, oh, well, he had Scottie Pippen. If you watched documentaries or watched anything, if Scottie Pippen was the reason why Michael Jordan won championships, then they would have won when he left. Well, Steve, they went far in the playoffs. I don't care. They would have won it if he was that good. So don't give me that argument anymore. And then he comes back and they win 3 more in a row. Okay. So then we'll do LeBron and then we'll do Kobe. But before we dive into that, are you looking for an energy drink to help you with that midday pick-me-up, but you want the crash that happens after about an hour or so? Are you looking for that pre-workout before you run or you go to the gym, but you want the pre-workout without the jitters? Well, if you head over to swiftlifestyles.com, you're going to get just that. It's a clean nutritional drink for any part of your day. They'll also sponsor gamers. Gamers are a big thing. Twitch is a big thing. So if you're a gamer already on Twitch and or if you want to get on Twitch, they want to talk to you. So go to swiftlifestyles.com. Go on there. Now, the stuff comes in a tub, like a pre-workout tub. There's 30 servings. You're not buying just a can and the serving's gone. You get 30 servings out of it. If you want a shaker, they have shakers on there and everything. They have some apparel and everything else. Go to swiftlifestyles.com. Use the code Coach Steve Show, all one word. You will save 15% off your order. Get the bubblegum flavor. It's delicious. swiftlifestyles.com and use the code Coach Steve Show, all one word, to save 15%. All of you football coaches, are your linemen's helmets? If so, there's a way to protect those shells and reduce all the repetitive blows that you guys are taking each and every week. It's Guardian Caps. Guardian Caps reduces 20 to 33% of the impact, really focusing on the big guys in the trenches, and you can't win without the big guys in the trenches. We all know this. Guardian Caps is worn by 5 NFL teams and 200-plus colleges like Roll Tide, Alabama, University of Georgia, Oklahoma, Washington, and Penn State. Check them out at guardiansports.com/guardiancaps. Use the code 15OFF, and you will save 15% off your order. You football coaches, we're all about saving money. We got to save money, especially in high school. Guardiansports.com/guardiancaps, 15 off for the code to save 15% off your order. Guys, after being home for over a year now, 2 years now, gyms have been closed for a while and they're opening back up. But some of us have probably put on the weight like I have. And are you thinking about getting back to the gym? Are you looking for supplements to help you reach your goal? I've got the place for you. You need to check out Redcon One. If you head over to redcon1.com or use the link in the description below, check out all the supplements to reach your goals. They have supplements for every part of your workout, pre-workouts, intra workouts, fat burners, everything else. Now, the big thing to help us lose weight and gain some muscle back is protein. So if you're looking for protein, I recommend using the link in the description below to get the Isotope Whey Protein, to take it immediately after your workout to get that protein your body needs after a workout, after a run, or in the morning. Protein just helps your body out. And the Isotope Whey Protein is great. Get the chocolate one. It's delicious. So if you use the link in the description below, use the code T20, STEPHENKU, you will get 20% off your order. And then when you're completing your purchase, if you put my first and last name in the referral box, it lets them know that I sent you. So again, use the link in the description below, use the code T20, STEPHENKU for 20% off your order. Then when completing your purchase, put my first and last name in the referral box, let them know I sent you. And it helps support the podcast. Thank you so much. So let's move on. So let's look at LeBron James. LeBron James, so far in his career, he's played way more games than Michael Jordan. So some people are saying that's more, that's better. Well, okay. He averages 27 points a game. That's 3 less than Michael. He averages 7.4 rebounds and 7.4 assists. Those are good numbers. Shoots 50% from the field, so about even with Michael. His 3-point is 34%. Okay. His free throw is 73.4%. Okay, so not the best. In the playoffs, out of 266 games, LeBron averages 28.7 points a game, 9 rebounds, 7.2 assists. Okay, not bad numbers, but Michael scored more points and did a lot more. And let's talk about LeBron James has never played in all 82 games. Jordan did this 9 times, even in his final season with the Washington Wizards. Michael Jordan played 92% of his games. Okay. LeBron's finals record is 4-6. Now, he's gotten there 10 times, which is impressive. But I think it might have been Ray Lewis in football that said, people don't remember or care how many you get there, how many you win. All of a sudden, though, with LeBron, it becomes a big deal of how many he got there this many times. That matters in the conversation. Only LeBron James does that shit matter. 4-6 doesn't get it done. Oh, well, look, and the excuses are, in the regular season, they do well. They do well in the playoffs. Then they get to the finals. And it's, well, that other team had such and such player. Well, did you see the players for LeBron's team that didn't do good? And if I say, well, then quit using that excuse, was like, well, Steve, look at what they actually did. And I'll say, yeah, they did bad. But that wasn't the excuse before. You understand what I'm saying? Do we understand what I'm saying? Some of the arguments that are given for LeBron James. Now, another stat that I want to find out is all first-team defenses. Those are important because LeBron James does not play tough defense. He does when he wants. When he wants to, great defensive player. Great. Michael Jordan had 9 all-defensive first teams, 9 total selections. Okay. LeBron, how many first defensive teams does LeBron have? 5. LeBron plays defense when he wants to, but he would rather save his energy for offense. He'd rather flop. LeBron James is probably one of the best actors we've ever seen to flop and get this, the elbow goes this far away from his face, and the ref just sees the flinching of it and goes, they hit him. Okay. Then let's talk about, when he quit, when he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers the first time, losing to the Boston Celtics, walks off, taking his jersey off before the game's over and quits on the team, takes his talents to Miami, plays with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, loses to the Spurs, beats Orlando or the Thunder, beats the Spurs, loses to the Mavericks. The only one that I give him credit for is the one where he was on Cleveland, they were down, and they came back and they beat the Warriors. That, though, does not make him the GOAT. Okay. He did have Kyrie Irving, who had to score, 30, 40, 50 points a game somewhere. So one time he scored 50. I will give him credit for that one. But people say that's what puts him over the top of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan either just lost because they didn't play well, or he didn't allow that to happen when they were down like that. Now let's look at Kobe Bryant and why I think Kobe Bryant's better than LeBron James. Kobe Bryant played in 1,346 games. He averaged 25 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists. Kobe Bryant averaged 25.6 points, 5 rebounds, and 4.7 assists in all 220 games in the playoffs. Now, Kobe Bryant had a lot of injuries. He played 82 games 4 separate times, but that's still better than LeBron James, who wanted to sit. And it was stated that Kobe Bryant was going to try to do his best to play all the games. How many first all-defensive teams does Kobe Bryant have? That's the next stat we're going to look at. Okay. All first defense teams of Kobe Bryant is 9. Okay. 9. Still more. Kobe played defense. Okay. LeBron does not. Okay. Michael Jordan, Gary Payton, Garnett, Kevin Garnett, and Bryant share the record for the most All-NBA first defensive teams with 9. Okay. And you look at the era, Kobe played in both. Kobe was playing when it was still tough, and he came in the very late 90s, played in the early 2000s, then won 3 in a row. Now, he did have Shaquille O'Neal, but then Shaq left, and then Kobe won. Now, the argument is, well, he had Pau Gasol. He had Pau Gasol. No offense to Pau Gasol, because I love Pau Gasol. How dare you put him at the same level as Shaquille O'Neal? He left. Look at the team around Kobe. It was him and Pau Gasol. You have Andrew Bynum, Lamar Odom, Luke Walton. Like, do I need to continue? Like, all these other names, okay? He didn't have Dwayne Wade. He didn't have Chris Bosh. He didn't have Birdman. He didn't have this, okay? He had to lead them to win, and he did. And then Kobe's last game scored 60 when he had all these injuries. Kobe had a lot of injuries. So I'm sorry to tell you, just for the sake of fact, I think we can look at eras, and you could say LeBron's the best in eras. But too many times has LeBron won a lot of regular seasons, not done it in the playoffs, gets to the finals, and then they fizzle out and they don't win. How many times has LeBron flopped? How many times has LeBron pointed the finger at a teammate? How many times has LeBron been too worried about political stuff? Now, he can have opinions, obviously. If I can have one, he can have one. But how many times does he talk about political things without doing the research? How many times does he do political things and say the wrong things and not be educated on things? Talks about us not being educated. How many times does that happen? That just kind of brings it down. How many times has he shrunk in games where he should have taken over? The excuse is, well, look who's on his teams and this and that. Look at who Michael Jordan had. But Michael Jordan still had those guys, okay, but he still was scoring more, getting more rebounds, getting assists. Yeah, they had good players. They had tough players, but they all had to play well. And his way of leading was tougher than LeBron James. But guess what? Got you 6 championships. LeBron's way is 4. But Steve, he gets there more. Funny, I didn't know just getting there all the time was what did it. Man, I didn't know. And then was talked about, well, does winning the championships always make you the GOAT? I mean, it kind of has something to do with it, but people are like, all you could say is 6 wins. No, look at the era they played, look at how they played, look at who they played. Got to look at the whole thing. Free throw percentages. How did they play defense? How many times did they win? How many times did they do this? Got to look at the whole thing. Now, is it fair to talk about Michael Jordan's retirements? No, not really, because LeBron can't control that. Fans can't control that. But you have to look at that where, okay, you have to think those averages and played, you never know. But I'm sorry to say, LeBron is one of the best we've ever seen, but he's maybe top 5. He's very physical, or I think he's a physical specimen. And can we also stop talking about how LeBron could play football in the NFL? No, LeBron can't drive to the basket and get slapped in the face without. Blah! He could never play in the NFL. So could we stop that? Can we stop like, oh, he could go play tight end in the NFL? My God, Brian Urlacher would mess him up. Ray Lewis would have broken his sternum. Tillman would have killed. Like, can we just stop with all that? Can we just stop? LeBron is probably a better quote unquote team player. And what I mean by team player, not that he does, LeBron doesn't care about teammates. Like this year, they're not doing so hot. Try to get Russell Westbrook. Well, now all of a sudden it's talked about, it's reported that LeBron has something to do with them, maybe going to trade him, like get rid of him, blah, 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 blah. And reports of, some teammates don't want to play with them and everything else. It's hard to get some guys there. And the excuse this year, and this is just it, like, well, LeBron's scoring his points, but look at Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is scoring a lot of points too. Well, we don't recognize him. Blah, blah, blah. So it falls on Anthony Davis not winning games. Well, basketball's a team game. Well, you guys always say LeBron is leading them until they lose, and then when they lose, it becomes a team game. When they're winning, it's it's on LeBron. They're winning. It's all because of LeBron. But then when they lose, it's a team game. They've got to step up. And then LeBron coming out the statement saying, I've won 2 of the hardest finals of all time. Being down 3-1, I can kind of give them. Then playing in the bubble. Shut the hell up in the bubble. Look at the food we ate. Do you realize people didn't get food during COVID? People didn't have money to get certain food? Shut up. Millions of dollars, and you're complaining about some of the food you got. You're complaining that you're playing basketball while you're away from your family. I get it. You were in this bubble. You're only around these guys. It's very isolated. Everybody was isolated, you jackass. We were all in our homes watching TV like you were in your hotel room watching TV. But the difference is you're getting paid millions of dollars. Shut the hell up from complaining about that. I've never understood that. I know money doesn't bring quote unquote happiness, but some of the struggles that normal Joes go through, especially during that time, was, we're not getting, some people did. I was fortunate enough to be getting paid because of working in a school district, and thank God I was. But other people were working other jobs where they weren't getting their unemployments because they lost their jobs because unemployments were backed up. People are still getting it today because it was so backed up. People have to still go to work. And you're complaining about getting some of the food and staying in a hotel and blah, blah, blah. Bring your Xbox or PlayStation. All this stuff. Don't talk about it was so hard being in the bubble in Florida and winning that. So shut the hell up. That's why people, LeBron, are starting to not really like you that used to. Okay. Your only fans you are going to have left is Shannon Sharp and Nick Wright, who are at your house all the time, cleaning your shoes, bathing you, washing your car, doing something, bowing down to you. I don't understand it. But okay, now we're getting way off again. That's why Michael and Kobe are above. People can look at numbers if they want, but look at how they play. Look at where they played at and the eras. Look at the entire picture before we come to this conclusion. Now, some of you are going to say, Steve, you're taking a little personal. Well, I am, because I'm tired of people coming after me. Sometimes when I just share a funny thing or, it's sarcasm or whatever it is. And you're going to walk away from this and say, well, LeBron is the best. And okay, that's fine. If you want to have a conversation with me about it, great. And come out and say, we're going to have a conversation about it. But Michael is probably the best of all time. But I think he's the best in the era that he played. I think Kobe at the beginning of that era was the best, and then it kind of went to LeBron. It is kind of hard to say the best ever, but just for the purposes, everybody else wants to do it. That's why. I could go on for a lot longer, but we're not going to rattle this on for another hour. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Had to get some of that off my chest. Thank you guys for listening. Again, check out all the affiliates in the description below. Like, subscribe to YouTube channel, follow it, rate it wherever you listen to your podcast in the audio form. Thank you guys so much. Check out the weekly episodes. This has been another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast, and we will see you guys next time.